Hello guys, I'm back from another video and today we talk about what if Deku was an Oni. So in the last video we talked about during his time in UA, they're basically just having a normal class until the last hour of class, which apparently they had a special teacher which they don't know about until the entire ground feels like it's shaking, almost thought it was like a earthquake until they saw All Might in front of the door. Actually, there isn't the door anymore because the door is basically flinged off its hinges, as he would explain that he's their new teacher in the heroics class. So, all of them would be excited, including Izuku, because he's basically just a canon Izuku, but a lot more confidence. So, after All Might would explain that they have to make their hero costumes so they can start off another, little test, which everybody was gladly doing it. So, Izuku would make a costume based off, freaking Onis because, even though he looks like an Oni, he isn't one. He believes himself, obviously. So, he decided to embrace his, almost Oni-like nature, so he decided to just make a costume based off that. So, after going to the support course to meet up with one of the teachers that will make his hero costume, it was basically as they started off their new little test, which is the heroes vs villain test. After basically just doing a little bit of a raffle, it turns out Izuku's teammate was his sister, aka Kinoko. So after they gone into the artificial building, or at least the fake building, they started going towards the bomb where Ida and Bakugo are basically protecting, as Bakugo would start fighting him. During the fight, he would pull on both of his pins on his gauntlets, and basically causing Izuku's top half to basically just disintegrate. All Might and the rest of the students are basically horrified seeing this, thinking that Bakugo actually killed a person. And a certain girl, aka Bara, saw this. She would be pissed at Bakugo, but thankfully, for some reason, Izuku is able to regenerate, which Izuku was not even knowing of this power. He didn't even know that he had the ability to regenerate. When Bakugo saw this, he would be defeated. As for the next battle between him and Ida, they would also get defeated, or at least he, as in Ida. So after they started explaining who's who's the MVP of this match, it was obviously Izuku because even though he was reckless, it doesn't mean that he had to kill people, as everybody's basically glaring at Bakugo, which Bakugo was pretty much pissed at. So yeah. And as for All Might, he would also be pissed at Bakugo for basically almost trying to kill a student of his. So, yeah, after that they basically gone back home, as that was basically what happened last episode. Except for a little part where it turns out that, Ibarra became a little bit of yandere. Actually, not even a little bit, she became a literal yandere after that day, thanks to Bakugo basically trying to kill him. So yeah, this is definitely gonna be an interesting episode. So yeah, that's basically what happened last episode. And let's talk about what happens next. So, it's basically almost the end of this week, as in, the end of in their world's week. So, it's basically Friday, as apparently they're gonna be going to the USJ, where they're gonna be doing some training in their rescuing, as in rescuing I mean practicing how to become rescue heroes if they want to become that. So as everybody's boarding the bus, they started going off to the USJ, as everybody's basically talking works as it reaches towards Izuku's. So one of them say this, being Sue, or Sue Asui. Hey, Izuku, Kero. What is your quirk exactly? Because it's definitely not a normal quirk, Kero. As Izuku would explain, I guess you can say it's kind of like a mutation mixed with I guess an emitter quirk? I guess you can say. But it's just a simple, strength enhancing quirk. It also somehow gave me regeneration for some reason, I actually didn't know that I was able to regenerate my whole top half for some reason. As one of them would say this, being, well, Ochako. So you didn't know that you're able to regenerate? As you would say this, yeah, I didn't even know that myself, so as one of them would say this, so how about your horns there? As you would say this, oh yeah, it's a mutation, I guess you can call it. Um, actually, I don't really know how I got these horns. As one of them would say this, being Kaminari. So you and Kinoko are basically like brother and sister, right? So why do you don't look like you're similar? Like, you said that you're brother and sister, but you don't look the same at all. As Izuku would explain, well, I'm adopted. As one of them would say this. So you're adopted then? Huh, didn't know that. As Izuku would explain, yeah, I was adopted in thanks to, well, mom and dad. They told me that I don't have a home, so I decided to, live with them instead. As one of them would say this, whoa, your parents are actually pretty kind. I mean, you're not even their child, so as Izuku would say this, yeah, I know. He would start, getting a little bit mad, as one of them would specifically say this, being his sister, Kinako. Izuku, just calm down, please do not cause any ruckus. Like, last time you basically tried to fight this guy that almost caused a bit of trouble in our school. As one of them would say this, what is that supposed to mean? As Izuku would say this, some delinquent tries to, well, wait for a second, this one delinquent tried to seduce my little sister over there, and I saw him try to, actually I'm not gonna say it, like, I'm not going to actually say the actual word, so just, call it, like, non-consensual cuddling, let's just call it that. So, after saying that, one of them would say this, being, well, Jiro. That bastard! What did you do then? As he would say this. Well, isn't it obvious? Grabs his kanabo and puts it up to his, and literally just, rest it on his shoulder. As one of them would say this, being, well, Mineta. So you basically, as he would say this, oh yeah, I just crushed him. Crushed him with every single strike of my kanabo. And, for you, Mineta, if I see you ever try and hurt my friends, or try and do anything pervy, you're just going to be just like that guy, in the hospital with all of those broken bones. Got it? As you give off this almost sadistic smile, as, well, let's just say Mineta's basically crying in the corner asking for help. So, as everybody's basically just talking and talking, one of them would say this, and that person was their teacher, Aizawa. Aizawa would say this, alright, everybody get off now, we're finally here. As everybody starts coming down from the bus, as they see the hero 13, which Ochako starts fangirling about. Izuku knows about 13, but he doesn't really know all about, he knows that she has, some sort of, black hole quirk, but none of, not even, like, none of the media doesn't know what she looks like under that, suit of hers. So, yeah, Izuku's quite curious about that, so, wait for a second. Seriously curious about that. So, as everybody was told about, 13, the usual, shtick where she basically explains about, heroes or, villains using, their quirks for either for good or for evil. Basically that whole thing. As while they're basically moving around through the, USJ, they get attacked by the, League of Villains, canon. The League of Villains would arrive as Shigaraki would proclaim that they're the League of Villains and they're basically here to kill All Might. Izuku would grab his sword, as some of the villains would see that he looks pretty weird. I mean, some of them look like, well, they're confused seeing this boy with, he doesn't wear a shirt, he's just wearing bandages on the side of his, or at least one of his hands or one of his arms, as he seems to have, horns and starts putting his kanabo on his, shoulder, as you would say this. So you must be villains, right? I've been looking for a good fight for a while now. As he would, point his kanabo at one of the villains, as one of them would say this. Well, you little prideful brat. You're thinking that you're going to beat us? We're stronger than you. Not only that, we outnumber you. So, you're asking for a fight, even though you're basically just like in a rock and a hard place? As one of them would say this, being Aizawa. Hey, 13. Bring those kids out now, before those villains. As this shadowy like villain would appear and says, uh, 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 sorry, but you're not leaving. As everybody starts getting engulfed in this shadow like substance, as they all teleport, well, into different places. In Izuku's case, Izuku would be dropped off at a, instead of like the gigantic ass like water area, instead it's the, seems to be more like a more like a replica of a broken down city. As Izuku would say this, where the hell am I? As he would look around, as he would see that he's in a training area for, well, people that are, or at least heroes that are basically training on how to, find people across across this, like, broken down, like, city, or at least a replica of it. As he would look around, seeing two people behind him. In this case, it's Ibarra and Kineko, as usual. So, as everybody is basically just like, you know, getting their bearings in, as one of them would say this, being Kineko. So, those are actual villains? As Ibarra would say this. This is going to be annoying. As she would start using her hair to, elevate herself, and starts looking around, as she would say this. Izuku, villains are arriving. As Izuku would say this. I've been looking for a good fight for a while now. So, do you want to join? As one of them would say this, being, well, Kineko. I'm not really good with fighting right now, so... As for Ibarra, she would say this. I do not indulge the... Well, wait for a second. I do not indulge myself in the sin of wrath. As Izuku would say this. Suit yourself then. As, well, Ibarra would start blushing a little bit, saying, he's always that handsome as usual. Why do I feel this way? She would start, like, blushing. Like, she would start, like, blushing. Like, it's completely noticeable. But, unfortunately, Kimiko would obviously, like, see this, but Izuku would not notice it and starts going to that area where the villains are basically going. So, as Izuku's basically, like jumping through, like, broken down building to broken down building, he would see some of the villains getting ready to try and kill them. Izuku would say this. So, what's your game, villains? As he would start, well, eavesdropping. Apparently, the villains are here to just kill some of the kids and maybe try and, try and kill All Might. After Izuku hears this, he would say this to himself. So they're planning on killing All Might, eh? They're seriously gonna die. So, he would grab his mask and starts putting it on, as he would grab his kanabo and his sword, as he would drop down and says this. Hey, villains! Looking for a fight? Then, as he would point his kanabo at one of them, as he would say this. Then try and fight me then. As one of them would say this. Oh, you poor, poor kid. You're definitely gonna die here. And besides, it's, actually, yeah, 5 to 10. Actually, no, not really, as one of them would say this. Oh, you're seriously that bad at math. It's 10 to 1. So, if you're looking for a fight, maybe fight somebody else. After all, you are small fry. As Izuku would hear this, as he would say this. Oh, really? As he would start jumping towards them, as he would slash one of the villains, well, not in half, but more causing him to basically faint when he gets slashed right in the chest. As everybody was basically screaming out in pain, or at least out of fear, some of the villains would start charging at him. One of them would start using electricity, as it would not affect him. Basically, it starts healing himself. Like, Izuku would start getting electrocuted as the burns would just basically disappear. As Izuku would say this, huh, this regeneration is actually pretty nifty. As he would grab his konobo and basically just like bodies one of the villains, being the one that literally electrocuted him. As he would see behind them another villain charging towards him with a speed quirk. As he starts making a tornado by basically just circling around him. As he says this, huh, how do you like that? As Izuku basically jumps out of the tornado and basically almost gets ready to basically slice off his head. As he would faint because he's about to die, or at least he thinks that he's about to die, as the rest of the other villains would basically run away. So, after he got back to the rest of the, people that are basically with him, being Kineko and Ibara would say this. So what happened? As Izuku would say this. Defeated some villains. So let's go. As Kineko would say this. Sure. As Ibara would say this. As you wish, Izuku. So, as they started going back to that little spot, they start getting off of that area as they see the middle of the Yoshave being, just chaotic. 13 is basically being bodied by one of the Nomus, or at least that's what they think it's a Nomu. Like, they don't know that it's actually a Nomu, or at least named a Nomu, so they see just this gigantic hulking monster that seems to have, a bird-like face and an exposed brain, as it seems to be bodying, 13. Aizawa tried to fight it, but unfortunately it's not working. Shigaraki would start laughing, saying, "Oh, you really think that you can actually beat it? It has shock absorption, regeneration, and not only that, strength enhancement. It's basically a perfect warrior. The perfect destroyer for All Might. It's called the Nomu, a multi-quirk monster, created by... Actually, I should probably not say anything else. After all, you're gonna die here anyway." As Izuku would say this, so it has multiple quirks, say, as one of them would say this, being, Kineko. So that thing has multiple quirks? How is that even possible? As one of them would say this, being, one of them would say this, being Ibara. Huh. So this thing has multiple quirks. So how should we defeat this thing? As Izuku would say this, "I have a plan." As he would explain the plan, which I'm going to say now. So, Izuku would basically jump out of nowhere and starts fighting the Nomu. As for Ibara and Kineko, Ibara would start, using her, vine-like hair to dig underground and gets ready to basically capture the Nomu. As for as for Kineko, she would start using her, I think it was basically just a water gun, but it's filled with spores. She would start spreading several spores as it starts growing and growing, turning them into basically mushrooms. As these mushrooms would start being inhaled by Shigaraki, as he would barely see anything. I probably don't know this from the manga or anything like that, but just imagine it like that. So, he would basically barely see thanks to him basically inhaling that. As for, Kodagiri, Konagiri would be attacked by one of Ibara's, vine hairs, as he would be subdued. And as for Aizawa would actually see this happening. Izuku is basically fighting the Nomu, as Izuku would scream out, "Ibara, now!" As Ibara would use her, move, or at least her special move, Vine Crucifixion, as she would basically just wrap all of the limbs of the Nomu, as Izuku would um basically just winds up as he would say this, "Ishina Daitensho," as he would start charging towards the Nomu, as he would slice it right in half, starting from the head, or more specifically the brain, and all the way down. As when Shigaraki actually barely sees it, but he hears the Nomu basically crying out in pain as it basically stops. As Shigaraki would say this, Konigiri, what happened to the Nomu? As Konigiri would say this, impossible. That kid destroyed the Nomu. As he would say this, what? How the hell did that kid... Wait, that cheater. He cheated. He cheated. As he starts screaming out saying that he's a cheater, as he would say this. So I'm guessing you're the leader of the League of Villains, I'm guessing. Or at least I think so. As he would grab two kunais and starts throwing at them. As Shigaraki's, eye would be ripped out. As he would scream out in pain, as Kodagiri would try to get out of the, binding that he's basically just like bind it to the wall, or at least, actually, yeah, he's basically binding to the wall thanks to the vines that, Ibara made. But Konagiri would be in vain because, it's basically pretty strong. As the heroes would arrive, they would start charging in trying to fight these, other villains. And as for Konagiri would somehow get out of there as one of the heroes being sniped would start shooting at him. As for Shigaraki, he would get shot in one of his arms, basically, just like in the anime, as they would start escaping, going into a portal. So yeah. So as everybody's basically relieved that the heroes are basically here now, one of them would say this, being, All Might. Young Midori, are you okay? What happened to Aizawa? As Izuku would say this. Oh, don't worry, I'm fine. And we meet to talk. Later. So, after the USG incident, Izuku was told to go to the principal's office to talk to All Might and Nezu. So, All Might would say this. So what is it, young Midoriya? Or at least young Izuku. Because, that's not his last name now. So, Izuku would explain. So, apparently the leader of the League of Villains, the handyman over there, told, or at least, was talking about how this thing, as he would show a picture of the Nomu, which is bisected, as one of them would say this. Oh yeah, wait, you actually killed that villain? No, that was as he would say this, that was no ordinary villain. Like, not at all. Apparently, this man by the name of Shigaraki, or at least I think that's his name, apparently his thing, this, whatever it's called, apparently it has multiple quirks. As when All Might hears this, he would say this. What? As Izuku would say this. Apparently it had shock absorption and also strength enhancement and regeneration. Apparently he told Aizawa about this and said that he gotten from his so-called master, or at least I think so. And apparently he doesn't want to tell any other information about it, saying that it's a surprise, quote-unquote. As when All Might hears all of this, he would say this. Nezu, we should call the Hero Commission immediately. As he would say this, being, Nezu. Are you on it? So, after talking about that, Izuku would start getting out of the principal's office as All Might is basically walking with him, as he would say this. So do you have any other information about that? As Izuku would say this. Yeah, apparently it's no longer human, or at least that's what Shigaraki told me, or at least told about it. As he would say this. What do you mean? As he would say, I think it was about something dead inside of it, or it's no longer human because it had multiple quirks or something. As he would say this. I see. This is gonna be annoying to deal with. So, young Midoriya, young Izuku, you're allowed to go back to your class now. As Izuku would say this. Okay. So, after getting back to class, Aizawa, now wrapped in bandages, would explain that there's no class for, the next week because of the USJ incident. And so, everybody would start leaving, including Izuku, Ibara, which Ibara was completely worried about him, so she started pampering him, and also Kinako, which she was kind of jealous about. So yeah, after that day,
they would basically go home, as that is basically the end of this episode. So, this is quite a short one. Like, quite a pretty short episode today. So, yeah. So, this is going to be the end of the episode, and so, I hope you liked the video, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye!